So the German courts have decided to disgrace themselves. Um, Before I jump into this story, I don't like to shamelessly plug, but I put my Patreon in the description. I'm trying to build this channel, so if you could generously spare a little bit here or there, obviously if you can't, very understandable. I'm a broke graduate student, so I get it. But if you could, again, to help move this channel along, I'd really appreciate it. And of course, subscribe, like, all that good stuff. But on today's story. German courts fine women for "From the River to the Sea" chant. A German court, this is from Al Jazeera, of course. A German court has imposed a €600 fine on a woman for using the slogan, "From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free," during a protest last year, a ruling her lawyer decreed as an assault on free speech. Lawyer Alexander Gorski, who represented the 22-year-old woman in Berlin, said the decision on Tuesday was a dark day for freedom of expression. "My client only wanted to express her hope for a future of democratic coexistence for all people in the region," he told AFP news agency, adding that the woman, identified only as Ava M., would appeal the decision. The court spokesperson said the woman was found guilty of using the slogan during a demonstration at Berlin's Neukölln district on October 11th, days after the Gaza war began. The court concluded that the use of the phrase could only be understood as a denial of Israel's right to exist and an endorsement of Hamas's October 7th attack, the spokesperson said. By October 10th, Israel had killed 1,537 Palestinians, according to local authorities, more than the number of Israelis killed in the October 7th attack. Anti-war activists have been organizing protests calling for a ceasefire at that time. Palestinian rights activists have said "From the River to the Sea" is an aspirational call for freedom and equality in historical Palestine. Israel supporters argue the slogan calls for the destruction of Israel. The phrase was outlawed by German Interior Minister Nancy Faeser in November. However, Israel controls the entire area between the Jordan River and the Mediterranean Sea, where it is imposing a system of apartheid on Palestinians, according to leading rights groups. Moreover, Israeli politicians often show a map of the country that includes the occupied Palestine territories, effectively saying that Israel extends from the river to the sea. Germany's been a staunch supporter of ally and one of its top weapons suppliers. The Israeli offensive in Gaza has killed at least 39,653 people. Again, that's 39,653 people, leveled large parts of the territory, and brought its more than 2 million inhabitants to the verge of starvation. Domestically, Berlin has cracked down on Palestinian rights activists. Earlier this year, the country passed a law requiring immigrants seeking German citizenship to affirm Israel's right to exist. Okay, so this is one of those frustrating stories. So, sometimes when you talk about like freedom of speech, some people, will have a more relativistic take on it, and they'll say, well, because of this history, this level of freedom of speech is okay, but this country has a very different history, and so, you got to have a different level of freedom of speech there, maybe less, maybe more, or something. And of course, as everyone knows, given Germany's recent history, many people are deathly afraid of a German right wing, of a far right German party coming to power again in Germany. So they make these, they're very, they make Holocaust denial laws. They're very sensitive to anything that could be construed as anti-Semitism or, criticizing Israel or suggesting, as the article mentions, that Israel shouldn't exist. But that's not what pro-Palestinian protesters are doing. That's not what most of them are doing anyway. Are there some that might say Israel shouldn't exist? Sure. But that's not most Palestinian protesters. And I'm so sick and tired of seeing pro-Palestinian protesters smeared as anti-Semitic, because supporting the rights of one group doesn't invalidate the rights of the other group. Not unless you have some weird mentality of like, well, both groups can't have rights, so if you want rights for this one group, you can't have rights for this other group. That's just how it works. We can't be equal. There obviously has to be one group that's superior. Like if you have this like terrible master-slave dialectic or something, then you can reason your way into being like, well, yeah, I mean, they like this group, so obviously they hate this other group. No. Most pro-Palestinian protesters, they want a two-state solution, or maybe they want a secular binational solution. But I mean, at the moment at least, a two-state solution is the predominant position in mainstream society. And that's what most people who are protesting for Palestinian rights and Palestinian sovereignty want, right? They're not saying Israel shouldn't exist. They're not saying Israel must be destroyed. They're saying Israel's crimes must cease. They must stop mistreating the Palestinians. And I guess one final point, laws like this, laws demanding German citizens, have to, demanding that, anyone who applies to German citizenship have to support the existence of Israel, or, fining a woman for making a comment, fining a pro-Palestinian activist for this phrase they've latched onto. This just shows to me that, Germany hasn't learned anything. And that's going to be offensive. And I'm sorry. Apologies to any Germans watching my video. But, the country clearly hasn't learned a damn thing, right? They haven't internalized the lessons of the 20th century, right? Because what they're doing is they're turning history into a weapon, right? They're beating people. They're beating their enemies. They're bludgeoning their enemies with history rather than learning from history. They're trying, the German government, not just the German government, but many people are trying to smear pro-Palestinian activists with history. But again, that's a shallow, it's a cynical, use of history. And again, it shows you don't care about history. If you really cared about history, then you would say, well, nothing like this should ever happen to anybody, and so we need to fight for the rights of all people worldwide, including Palestinian people. But that's not what happens. And I guess one final point on this, it's like, I'm not a relativist when it comes to free speech. I think if you care about free speech, then you should believe in the principles of free speech across nations. You should believe that people should have the right to express themselves in whatever country they are, in whatever country they reside in. So, this is a sad day for free speech in Germany, for freedom of expression in Germany. And they should not be targeting pro-Palestinian activists for their speech acts. That is a disgusting behavior. And it's really counterproductive in the end. It only encourages, various groups to go underground rather than be out in the open, where people can more or less judge them for what they are. So, yeah, German L fined a woman for protesting for the Palestinian people, all because she used one phrase.